Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry, and I am excited today because I have on the line with me from Detroit area, Michael Mode, who has been speaking professionally for 12 years. But what you don't know is he has a magic background. He's a professional magician who has been performing for 30 years, so he's no stranger to being in front of the public. The content that Michael speaks on is about how to think like a magician, and what that boils down to is innovation techniques. Now, Michael speaks in the U.S. and he consults all over the world, and he is currently working on a book on inventions that are used by the general public, where those inventions were created by magicians. And I'm anxious for you to hear some about that. It's really, really interesting. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Andy. Great to talk with you today.
It's great to talk with you. Now, let's talk about your speaking business, because I've talked to a lot of speakers, and what you do is very interesting to me because it's just so different to what I've come across, and I find it fascinating. So who is it that you're talking to? What are you teaching them? How are you helping them?
Well, I speak primarily in the corporate world, and what companies do, a lot of times, as you know, companies, the employees start to run out of ideas, or they just get stagnant and start to create inside of a vacuum, and they get stuck. They have problems that they're trying to solve, and they just hit a roadblock, a mental roadblock. And what they do is they bring me in to teach them a new way of thinking, kind of a magic mindset. And what I do is I perform a trick, and then I teach everybody how to do that trick. And they're now doing something that a couple of minutes ago they thought was impossible. So I show them how to do the impossible, and we talk about different creative techniques, different innovation techniques, and then the ideas just start flowing. So it just really takes them and gives them a new perspective, gets them thinking outside the box, and helps them to come up with ideas to solve these challenges that they're working on.
I love it. What now? Do you teach the same trick to all audiences, or is it different ones each time?
It depends. If I'm doing a keynote presentation for a larger group, I will do one trick. If I'm doing a different workshop where I have Procter & Gamble is one of my repeat clients, and I go there and I work with smaller teams on different topics, and I might have 12 or 15 people in the room. So I get to do some things that might not be visible to a large audience. So I try to customize it for the audience that I'm working with. But I do have a few tricks that I usually use for the audiences that I'm working with, yes.
What's your what trick gets the most oohs and ahs and really gets people going that you do?
Well, those are the ones I don't teach.
Okay, as far as the ones you do teach, what would that be?
The ones I do teach are good, but I can't give away all my secrets. So I teach them a trick, and a lot of the tricks that I do in my show are tricks that have taken me years to, I can't even say perfect, because I'm always working on them and always, changing them, and they evolve. But some of those take years to perform and get the sleight of hand or the workings behind it down. So I usually teach some tricks that are simpler to do, something that they can do right away with borrowed objects that they have, something with a dollar bill or a pack of playing cards or a rubber band, things like that. But in my own show, in my own presentation, in my talk, I do some mind reading type effects, some mentalism,
right,
as we call it. And that always gets a great reaction, because people think, well, how did he know what I was thinking? I didn't have anything. I didn't write anything down. I didn't talk to him before, and he still knew what I was thinking. And I use that as an example of how they can predict what their customers are thinking. Magicians have always done research over the years into, informal research into the way the human mind thinks. And there's a lot of psychology involved in magic. And there's a lot of psychology involved in marketing, as you know. And I talk about that, whether it's, a customer relationship in a business, or whether they're designing a new product line or a new marketing strategy, and how those techniques can apply to what they do.
Can you give an example of how those techniques apply?
Well, sure. There's a lot of things we use in magic where it's just a particular word that you use. And, we might say this table is 2 inches thick. Well, that word thick sticks out in somebody's mind. So just changing that to 2 inches thin, now you have the word thin in your mind, and that's what the customer remembers. So things like that in products, or whether it's the visual design of a package, different shading that magicians use on illusions and in magic can make things look different. Whether you shade it with black or this color surrounding this color, you can make it look like there's more of a product in a package or less of a product. Things like that. And also the way a customer would walk through a store and look at things, or different techniques that we use in magic where you meet somebody for the first time and you recognize things that people might not pick up on normally. And those are things that salespeople can use when dealing with clients or potential clients.
It's fascinating when you said the thick and thin thing, and you pointed that out. I was actually, because when you say thick, I was thinking thick, but when you said thin, for some reason, as you know, in my mind, I saw it thinner.
Yeah. There's a lot of neurolinguistics involved, and it's fascinating. And when I first started out with this, people said, well, how does this apply to what we do in our business? And even I thought that. A lot of my repeat clients had asked me to come in and talk to. I kind of got known as an idea guy in magic. I came up with some magic and started selling it and consulting with a lot of different magicians. And then I worked at Disney as well, Walt Disney World. I worked there on the college program and got trained as a Disney trainer, which gave me a whole nother mindset, because Disney they excel at what they do and they have to exceed guest expectations. And that's what I have to do in magic. People come and they think, well, you're going to fool us. So they already know that, right? So I have to exceed what they're going to, what their expectations are. But it's a lot of fun, and I've realized, and companies have realized, that it does apply to what they're doing. People say, we never would have been able to solve this problem or this challenge before you spoke to our group. So I think that's great. We're at a crucial point in this country and many other countries where innovation is key. It's a real hot topic right now, and a lot of companies have to innovate to succeed. And it's humbling, but it's also an honor to go in and work with these companies and teach them some techniques that are proven, that help them do innovate and succeed with the products they're working on.
That's fascinating. I love that. Now, you were asked to speak at a TED event, correct?
Right. I did TEDx in Detroit last year.
Okay, and the subject was magic? And
yes, it was a 10-minute version of my longer keynote, which is how to think like a magician. So I did just a real short version of it.
Well, I've studied some of the TED stuff, and I do know that you don't just call them up and say, hey, I want to speak, and they bring you on. It's way more involved than that. And did they contact you? Did you contact him? How did that work?
Yes, they contacted me, which was great. They had heard about me through some other people, and they called me up and asked me if I would be interested in doing it. And we did. It was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Now, I think you said you've been performing for 30 years, and you said since age 12. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so that'd make you roughly 42.
Yeah, I'm 41, but I like to say that I read on a 45-year-old level. So.
There you go.
We've all got goals.
So how did you get started speaking? Because here you're doing the magician stuff, and then you morphed into the speaking too. How did that happen for you?
Right. Well, I grew up in Detroit, and my father was a police officer in the city, and I was the youngest of four. Still, I'm the youngest of four. And my brother had a magic set, my older brother. By the time it got passed down to me, there were pieces missing and the instructions were gone. And I played around with it and I figured out my own way of doing the tricks. And that was a good lesson because it started me thinking in a different way from most magicians. And then when I was a little bit older, I started working in a magic shop, Romig Magic Shop, which is now called the Wonderground. And I was a demonstrator there. And I wanted to get a job at a grocery store as well to help buy some of this magic because it was very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I was too young. I was only 13 years old. So I couldn't work at the grocery store. So instead, I got a job performing magic behind a bar.
At 13?
At 13 years old. And I worked every Wednesday night from 6 to 8 o'clock. And it was a bar where there were a bunch of regulars that would show up every week. It was near the GM Tech Center. And so it was kind of baptism by fire because it was the same people every week. So I would go home and I would practice new magic, and then I'd come back and perform it for them.
So you were always on top of your game with new stuff, for sure.
It was. I had to learn new material. And a lot of times I'd come back and they'd say, oh, show my friend the one you did last week or a couple of weeks ago. So it was good that they wanted to see things I had already performed. But I also tried to have a few new things ready every week to go. So I learned a lot very quickly, and it was a very tough audience for a 13-year-old. I would have thought, who's this kid coming in? But so I had to be good at an early age.
All right, and I would imagine you said your dad was a policeman. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I would imagine you working in a bar with a policeman dad was a bit of a conversation.
Well, I think the restaurant is no longer open. I don't know if that was because of child labor laws or what the reason was, but yeah, it was interesting, but it was fun. It was a great lesson to just think differently. It was, well, I can't get a job here, so what else can I do? And it started me at a very early age doing magic.
Well, that's fantastic. Now you, this book, I want to talk about the book that you're working on because that's interesting. You've written a book on inventions that the general public uses, featuring the inventions who were created by magicians, correct?
That's right.
Can you talk about that some?
Sure. I'm kind of a history buff, and I study a lot of magic history. I've got hundreds of old magic books, and the more I study it, the more I've learned that magicians have always been on the forefront of innovation and technology. And one of the earliest magicians, Robert Houdin, a French illusionist, who started out as a watchmaker, and then he turned to magic, and this was back in the mid-1800s. And he created what many people believe to be the first house completely run by electricity. He had an automatic horse feeder, and he had an alarm system, and all of these innovations that were way back, and he used a lot of magic techniques and a lot of magic thinking to create these.
Interesting.
Then there was a magician, it's very interesting. There's another magician, Georges Méliès, who was another French illusionist who invented movie special effects. He came up with several techniques, dissolve, stop trick photography, and literally he invented the horror film genre. And there have been a lot of other magicians who have invented things, like Houdini had a couple of patents, and there's hundreds of different patents that were created by magicians. The first development lab at Procter & Gamble, there were two magicians that were key members of that, and they invented the Ban roll-on deodorant container and the device to insert Pringles into the can without breaking them, and they designed the Head and Shoulders bottle, all these different things. And there have been a lot more magicians that went into movies as well. You've got Orson Welles, you've got J.J. Abrams, who did the TV show Lost, and another magician who's from the Detroit area, Sam Raimi, who famous movie director who started as a magician. He used to perform birthday party shows in the area. And his first editing studio, where he edited the movie Evil Dead, was right across the hall from the magic shop. And he would stop in there and learn some magic and things. So they, when you watch their movies and when you watch the things they've created, you can see these influences of magic. Actually, J.J. Abrams did a whole TED Talk, and it was about this box of magic tricks that he got as a child that he's never opened. And he said it's that power of mystery, of not knowing what's inside that box, that is more powerful than actually knowing what's inside there. So that magic box has been the inspiration for a lot of things, whether it's the Hatchet in Lost, where we're not sure what's in there, or the movie Cloverfield, where it's a magic box. But he said all of those movies have been about a magic box in one way or another, and the mystery of not knowing what's inside.
Wow, that as the general public, which I am included in there, when you think about the effects that magicians and magic have had, that really puts that in a perspective. I had no idea. Right. There are. Well, Michael, that's fascinating information. Now, there's people who are going to want to know how to get a hold of you because they want you to speak, they want your help, that kind of thing. So what is your contact information for that?
Well, my website is biglightbulb.com. That's the name of my company, Big Light Bulb Incorporated. It's where big ideas are born. And people ask me all the time, well, how did you come up with that name? And I said, well, every other domain was taken. So I actually, when I was looking up domain names years ago, I said, geez, I'm going to get the last website available. And then I looked that up, and it was available. So if you go to the last website available.com, that's also my website. But biglightbulb.com is my website. And should I give a phone number as well? Or
You betcha. You
can call me at 1-800-913-8669. 1-800-913-8669. That's my office number.
Now, the Big Light Bulb Light is spelled L-I-G-H-T, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Some people spell L-I-T-E, but it is L-I-G-H-T.
Yeah, I've got that one too, though, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, good.
You have to buy them all nowadays.
Yeah, you do. Well, listen, Michael, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a peek into your business. That was fascinating information.
Well, thank you. I'd love to come back on and talk about some more stuff sometime, but I appreciate you calling, and I appreciate your time. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.